if I'm sitting there at the 12th pick and I swing Juju and Odell, I'm just like, oh yeah, baby. Like I am fucking like jerking it at that point.
You're listening to Let's Talk Fantasy Football, where men of fantasy genius have realized, hey guys, we don't need real football skills to dominate on the fantasy field. Yeah. So slap on your pads and grab your helmet. Shit's about to get real.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of Let's Talk Fantasy Football. I am your host tonight. My name is Nick Walsh. I am here with my wonderful friend, my fellow, I don't know. I'm here with Vinny Gonzalez. Vinny, how's it going, dude?
Yo, these intros suck, Walsh. Usually you're good. These have both been bad back to back. So
I kind of like that one. I did bad on purpose almost. The first one, like I was legitimately just like, I don't fucking know what to do.
That was a fumble to the end zone. This one was a knee. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe it was like the Tony Romo fumble on the kick hold. I think that's what that intro was.
I don't know if it's that devastating, but it wasn't good.
Yeah, okay, that's fair. You're right. It was like a less exciting, but more or just as equally bad play. Anyway, Vinny, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing good, man. We in real time just did the previous podcast. If you didn't listen to it, it was the AFC North, my Bengals and the Boo Steelers. So go check that out, fellas. It was good, I'd say. I think this one will be better because we'll probably yell a lot more.
Yeah, absolutely. We are doing the AFC North Part 2 here. That is going to be the Ravens and the Browns. We chose to finish with the Browns on purpose because both Vinny and I wanted to be the drunkest that we would possibly be on this podcast to yell about the Browns, which will surely happen and will surely be a lot of fun. Next week, guys, we are going to have the NFC South. We're unsure who's going to be bringing that to you, but it's probably going to be some combination of me, Vinny, and Don. So look forward to that. Keep an eye out for that. Again, if you haven't listened to part 1 of the AFC North or the AFC East or NFC East, make sure you guys go back and check those out. Vin, you got anything else we need to go through before we jump into these Baltimore Ravens?
No, I was just going to say we should do all three of us. Get the first trio cast.
That would be pretty rowdy. That would be a good one. I like that.
Yeah. Other than that, no. Let's jump right in, man.
All right, fucking sweet. Baltimore Ravens, baby. So we don't have any big coaching changes. I guess the big change is that it's officially Lamar Jackson's show. So last year we started the year with Joe Flacco. Lamar Jackson came in after the bye week. They ran the run heaviest offense in the NFL from that point on, both in terms of quarterback runs and running back runs. And now it's Lamar Jackson's turn to really show what he can do. I got to tell you, I was really impressed with Lamar Jackson last year. I thought he was very, very good for what they asked him to do. And they also didn't ask him to do too much, pretty much until they were down heavy against the Patriots in that playoff game. And he kind of acquitted himself pretty well, slinging the ball around in that game as well.
Chargers.
I'm sorry. You're right.
It was, that's a fair assessment. I was probably going to be a little more harsh for obvious bias reasons, but watching him play, I wasn't like overly impressed, but he obviously is a very talented dude. I just don't know like what to expect for the future. Like, I don't know. There's always that bullshit thing like, oh, they got another year of tape. I'm like, yeah, maybe not. Like these quarterbacks like Lamar Jackson type, it's kind of hard to prepare for, like regardless. The dude's going to get, he's going to get his, so to speak. And as we've talked about throughout the years, like fantasy football, like running quarterbacks are valued on how much more they can do. When you have a sort of quarterback like Lamar Jackson, he's going to get the points elsewhere other than passing, and he's going to dominate that way. And he doesn't necessarily have to have a good game. We've talked about Tebow constantly on this one. With tons of other guys, and just like Lamar Jackson fits that mold completely. He didn't throw the ball 25 times at all, I don't think, until that Chargers game when he had to. And the dude was a quarterback one for like most of the games that he started at the end of last season. So it's kind of weird that he's going so late. I feel like more people would jump on him, but I think they're just expecting inconsistency with his passing. But I don't think they're realizing it's not on how good he's going to be or whatnot. It's just like he's going to get fantasy points.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that leads to the most consistency as a fantasy quarterback is being able to run the ball with some sort of consistency. So, I mean, you said it. You were the king of starting Tim Tebow, and he was a terrible passer. I've got some stats here about Lamar Jackson. In 7 starts, he passed the ball 170 times, ran the ball 146 times. That's pretty wild. I would expect those numbers to be a bit more divergent this year. You would think they would go to a bit more of a traditional NFL offense, but like this is still a guy who's going to run the ball at least 10 times a game, whether it's designed runs or scrambles or whatever else. So over those 7 starts, he had a range of about 16 fantasy points to 21 fantasy points. Like I said, that's a tight, consistent range, due in most part to those rushing stats. Also, wouldn't you start if you knew you were going to get 16 to 21 fantasy points every week? Like, wouldn't you start that guy every week, or am I losing my mind?
No, you're definitely not. And he wouldn't be QB2 off 22 off the board like right now as of, late June. But I'd imagine I don't even know if that's going to creep up. I really don't know. But he is a great late round snag, waiting on quarterback snag, like 100%. So that's what's cool about him. You can grab him late, and he can be your starting quarterback, like no question. Doesn't matter the defense they're playing. Doesn't matter what's going on. He's going to get his, and he's a great starting quarterback in this league for fantasy purposes, like from here on out, pretty much.
Yeah, and I think another thing in his favor is he's probably not going to run the ball like I said 146 times in 7 starts. That's like over 20 times per game. I don't think he's going to run the ball 20 times per game in 2019. But he has a little bit of room to increase his rushing touchdowns. For a guy who ran the ball so much, he only had 2 touchdowns. For perspective, Josh Allen had 8 rushing touchdowns last year. There's room for that to increase. There's room for his passing efficiency to increase. Lamar Jackson is a guy that I am all over at this point in the draft. Will likely own him everywhere that I possibly can. Yeah. Behind him, there's RG3 and then rookie Trace McSorley. McSorley's a little bit interesting in that it seems like they're going to try and Taysom Hill him, where they that might be something that might take away from Lamar Jackson's rushing touchdown potential that I just talked about. If they do try and make him a Taysom Hill light or whatever they're trying to do. They also put him in a punt returner or some bullshit like that. I don't know. They're trying to do weird stuff there.
You're not the Saints. Just fucking get a real kick returner, get a real gadget player. You don't have to do that shit.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. Do you have anything else on Jackson or the quarterbacks?
No, not really.
All right, let's talk about the pass catchers. No wide receivers for the Ravens are getting drafted. They're a very weird team. They feel like very fantasy relevant. And literally 3 players on the team are getting drafted in fantasy drafts. But anyway, we've got Willie Snead. We know Willie Snead is likely going to be in the slot. And then we've got their 2 rookies who we would expect to play outside. That's Marquise Hollywood Brown, the first wide receiver taken in the draft, small speedster out of Oklahoma. Don't entirely understand it because Lamar Jackson was not very accurate down the field this past year, and he feels like sort of a John Brown clone. John Brown fell off the map when Lamar Jackson was the quarterback. The other receiver here was Miles Boykin. He was a 3rd-round wide receiver out of Notre Dame. He's 6'4", 225 pounds, very inconsistent, has some drops, has some weird things going on, but a ton of potential with that frame and with that size and with that speed. Do you have opinions on these wide receivers at all? Do you think any of them should be drafted?
It's very tough. And I was going to turn this right back on you, Walsh, because you had you were playing actually Lamar Jackson and John Brown at one point last year. And that shit was tough. And it was really weird because you didn't know what wide receiver was going to eat that week because Lamar Jackson was so inconsistent with no volume really with passing. And I feel like that's kind of why a lot of these guys are undrafted because you don't know where the volume is going to go game to game. I'd like to say Willie Snead, but I just feel like that's because he's over the slot and he'll catch a lot of passes regardless. He's the guaranteed volume play, I think. So I'm more looking to that. But then a lot of these guys can hit home runs, catch like a red zone target or whatnot, boost up their value. But to me, I think it makes sense that none of them are being drafted right now. I think a lot of them will be plays based on hot hand and matchup throughout the season. I don't know if anyone's going to remain consistent, but like I was saying before, I was going to ask you, it was incredibly frustrating to have John Brown. I think you dropped him at one point because he was sort of getting to the point where it was like unplayable because you just couldn't put up with Jackson and the inconsistency.
Yeah, I mean, he was great when Flacco was at the helm, and then once Jackson took over, he just fell off a cliff. So, it is what it is. There, it makes me very wary of Marquise Brown. But we'll see how it all plays out. I really think the preseason and how these guys are lining up is going to do a lot to tell us what they're going to try and do on offense. The other guys that they do have around here are Michael Floyd, Chris Moore, and Jordan Lasley. Obviously, none of them are being drafted. I wouldn't expect them to really factor in outside of maybe Chris Moore taking Miles Boykin's spot. I don't know. I don't really think there's too much to go for here other than like keep a loose eye on who's getting the snaps and who's getting the targets in preseason. And if one guy comes out hot, like pick him up on the waiver wire.
Yeah, exactly.
All right. At tight end, we've got Mark Andrews, Hayden Hurst, and Nick Boyle. It's still pretty crowded there, even though Max Williams is gone. Hayden Hurst was the first round draft pick last year, but Mark Andrews was the rookie who actually made an impact. So Andrews was pretty much Lamar Jackson's favorite receiver. Obviously, he wasn't passing the ball much, but he's currently going as the fifth pick in the 14th round. He's tight end 21. Another guy who produced as a rookie, which is rare. We talked about it with Chris Herndon last week. A lot of really smart people are on Andrews as a sleeper. Are you on Andrews?
No, not really. It's just in that same vein of like what we were just talking about. Like I can't rely on any of these guys. Obviously there could be a matchup play if he's playing like the weakest defense against tight end, then it kind of perks you up a little bit. Him getting drafted, I don't know, this late, like he's probably going to go undrafted in a ton of leagues. So I feel like he'll be, like I keep saying, a kind of guy that's on the waiver wire, pick him up, tight end roulette, as we say. I really don't see too much upside for him to have consistency like throughout the year. So I really can't see or advise drafting him at this point.
Okay, that's fair. I think he's fine as a late round flyer, but I'm not particularly going after him. And I think Hayden Hurst and Nick Boyle are pretty safe to leave there. So let's go to the running backs. They brought in Mark Ingram. He's currently going as the 9th pick in the 4th round. That's RB 23. Ravens running backs overall had 352 carries last year. That's quite a lot, but they still do have Gus Edwards, Kenneth Dixon, and their 4th round pick Justin Hill on the roster. I have almost no opinion on Ingram this year. What's your opinion?
I just think he's going to be used in like that weird role where he was, where the Saints just weren't giving him the ball and you couldn't understand why. Because I bet he has a great year. It's just going to be inconsistent. They're not going to feed him on a consistent basis. I feel like they're going to use all 3, possibly 4 of these guys throughout the games. And it's going to be tough. It's going to be tough to play Ingram week to week because he can get a lot of touchdowns in a short amount of games. And then all of a sudden he doesn't score at all, doesn't get a lot of opportunity. It's going to be hard for Mark Ingram to go over, I think, 16 touches in a game, which is weird to say. I just think they want to keep, because they're going to run the ball a shit ton. They're going to use Ingram. They're going to use Edwards. They're going to use Dixon. They love Dixon. They haven't been able to use him fully for an entire year, but that guy is probably the biggest problem, I think, because Gus Edwards got hot late last year, came out of nowhere, but they've always had Dixon. They've always tried to implement him, so I think he's actually going to be the surprise to be kind of complementary to Mark Ingram. But it's tough because there's so much value in a team that's going to run the ball so much and try to keep it, a slow-paced game with, Jackson leading the team. It's just going to be hard to play Mark Ingram, and if you're taking him in the 4th round, late 4th round, that's tough. You're sacrificing a lot for a guy that might not necessarily, build up to that draft pick.
Yeah. And I mean, going in that range, like you have Kenyon Drake, Sony Michel, Chris Carson, James White, all going directly after him. I don't know about Carson, but I think I'd rather have the rest of those guys than Mark Ingram. So I don't think I'm going to be ending up with Ingram on a lot of teams just because I think there's a lot of uncertainty in this situation. And I mean, there's uncertainty in all these guys' situations. There's a reason they're late 4th, early 5th round draft picks. But to me, Ingram poses like a weird question. And, we've seen him be productive on partial work in the past, but we know those ups and downs for him as well. So it's a difficult decision. None of the other guys are being drafted. Do you think there's an argument for any of them to be drafted? You said you like Dixon a bit.
Yeah, not in like a way where I would say he's going to draw any value. I just think he's going to be a thorn in Ingram's side, more so like that.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah, I wasn't saying like, oh, he'll usurp like the role. It's just weird how much they involve him when he is active because he's been suspended, hurt, whatnot.
Yeah, they love him in the pass game.
They fucking love this guy. So I'm very wary of the whole situation. I've seen a lot of the Ravens, so very curious to see what they do here. So I'm just kind of staying away from the whole situation, I'd say. Love Ingram, love what he can do, but fuck, man. I don't know. I'm going to stay away. And then, yeah, as far as the other guys, I don't think it's doing it.
Okay, that's fair. You got anything else on the Ravens?
Wow, that was it. No, I'm good, man. That was
it's weird because like they really only have those 3 guys getting drafted. It's like super wild.
It's literally Lamar Jackson's fault because, like we were saying, he's the focal point of the offense. There's no number one in any other category other than him.
Yeah, so, and I mean our opinions are basically he's getting way underdrafted, and like the other guys like basically shoulder shrug, you know?
Right, exactly. Like if you're the guy that is going to get virtually every fantasy point on your team, like there's no other number one in any category on this team besides Lamar Jackson. The dude's going QB 22.
Yeah, and they have to be projected because like they're a team that, I mean, obviously this division is going to beat up on each other, but like you could see them making the playoffs no problem. Yet they only have 3 people who would be taken in a fantasy football draft. That's just so bizarre. It really goes to show just one, that their defense, should be pretty good, and 2, that they've just got such a different offense compared to everyone else.
Yeah, this is going to be it's just going to be odd. Like it's going to be the Jackson show. Obviously, you could sneak away with some Ingram plays, but I feel like he's more of a flex, and I just feel like more of the days of running back flex, or like you're limiting your upside on your team if you're putting like a running back who's probably not going to catch passes in your flex. And that's kind of how I view him. So it's really Ingram could possibly be an RB3. So and same for the other guys. It's going to be like their ceilings don't seem particularly high. Like they're not going to get massive volume. If they catch 2 touchdowns, it'd probably be a miracle. Yeah,
exactly. I think it might be a frustrating fantasy team from a fantasy perspective, but we'll see how it goes. Draft Lamar Jackson late. You'll be happy with it.
You're listening to Let's Talk Fantasy Football, home of the brutally honest fantasy advice you've always needed.
Let's move on to those Cleveland Browns. I said on our comeback podcast, I thought they might be a Super Bowl contender. I have not changed my mind. The big picture changes here. Freddie Kitchens is the head coach. He was the interim head coach after Hugh was sent to wherever he belongs in the middle of last season. I'm sorry?
Greg Williams was.
Greg Williams was the D coordinator, right? He was the head coach, or am I losing my mind?
He took up his interim, I believe, right?
Oh, did he?
Yeah, then he got fired. That was a surprise because Freddie Kitchens came out of nowhere, and there's a head coach.
I'm sorry. Okay, cool. So Freddie Kitchens is currently the head coach. For some background on him, he coached under Bruce Arians with the Cardinals for most of his career, and he's going to be the play caller. The big hire that they made was Todd Monken is the offensive coordinator. Todd Monken is a name who, among people whose football opinions I trust a lot, is very well respected. He was Tampa Bay's offensive coordinator last year. He led Tampa Bay to 5,400 yards passing and 36 touchdowns with a combination of Jameis Winston and Ryan Fitzpatrick, sometimes going back and forth between the two of them in singular games, which seems like a miracle. Todd Monken is very smart. It seems like Freddie Kitchens is very smart. I'm very excited for this offense this year. So we'll start with their quarterback, second-year quarterback Baker Mayfield, going as the 3rd pick in the 6th round. That's quarterback 5. Do you like this price for Baker?
Yeah, I do. It's just they brought in so much, and for him to not at least be QB5 or higher would be sort of shocking. There's just so much that he can do with this offense. And Baker can fucking move. Like, he can get rushing touchdowns as well, so with fucking Beckham added, Landry, it's just this is probably where he should go, honestly. And we always preach wait on quarterback, but a dude with this kind of upside was probably going to go here QB5 in leagues that do draft quarterback normally, as opposed to us being the outliers. Like probably sort of a steal going after like the other guys.
Okay, I'm going to have somewhat of I think, a shocking opinion based on what I've said so far, so I'm going to pour myself a glass of wine for it. I think Baker is being overdrafted.
How much?
Like, I don't think he should go in the 6th round. I think like I'd be comfortable taking him in like the 8th or 9th. And the reason I say that is, look, I know he's a second-year quarterback. I know he's going to improve, all that sorts of things, but he was 20th in fantasy points per games among quarterbacks last year, only 1.2 fantasy points more per game than Andy Dalton. You mentioned how he's mobile. It didn't really show up in his stats. I know he can move around behind the line of scrimmage, only 131 yards on the ground over his 13 and a half games. So he's getting you like 1 point worth of rushing fantasy value per game. He didn't have any rushing touchdowns. Obviously that could change. That's a variable thing year to year. But every other quarterback that's going in front of him right now provides some sort of rushing upside. He's currently going as the number 1 quarterback in terms of guys who are basically just pure passers, based on the stats that we have so far. I know he's got a better supporting cast. I know he's going into his 2nd year. I know he's going into his 1st year with a consistent head coach situation that we know is good. But I'm not buying Baker at quarterback 5 in the 6th round. I think I'm willing to take him in the 8th or 9th, and not really before then, which means I'm not going to own him.
Those are all very fair points. I'm just looking at like what they added, what Baker does, his fucking attitude. Like, it's where he's going to go. And I think it's for what they added and what Baker brings to the team, going at 5 seems low compared like to what I was expecting to see. Like, I swear it is far and away not what I expected. I thought he was going to go like 3 or fucking anything higher than 5, which is shocking at this point.
See, that's the thing. I think his attitude and his machismo, to bring up a Razor Ramon term, hey, yo, but I think that's probably what's inflating his ADP a little bit, because if you had asked me like how many fantasy points per game, or like what position was Baker in terms of quarterbacks for fantasy points per game after he was starting games last year, I would have said like 7th, and he was 20th. Just because he was so exciting and he was so fun and he was bringing this franchise, back from the dead and this whole sort of thing. So I think his reputation is getting inflated, and that's inflating his ADP a little bit. But also, like, you're not wrong, because if he ends up QB2, I'm going to be like, yeah, okay, that makes sense.
Right. That's the whole thing. And also, like, he did revive this entire franchise team, whatever, what have you, for that year. We shall see as it goes forward. It'd be hard not to at this point with the fucking talent they have. But also, I was factoring in, like, Nick Chubb just went the fuck off. That dude got so many carries. They tried to take a lot off Baker's back. And the plays that Baker made, they were plays that he had to, like, earn, make some insane throws. So, like, he is going to have a much easier time, I feel, with, like, these weapons. It's just going to be – I think it's just, like, totally – it's just a better situation, obviously, than last year. And I don't know. I just feel like this is right where Baker should be going, and chances are it's probably going to increase. So it is only fucking late June, so we shall see.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I'm just a little bit more bearish on Baker than I think the consensus at this point. So let's talk about his weapons a little bit. One stat I'd like to throw in before we go through his wide receivers. After Freddie Kitchens took over as the offensive coordinator, no one receiver got double-digit targets in any single game. So what that says to me is that Freddie Kitchens likes to spread the ball around. We'll see if that changes with Odell Beckham being in the fold now. That being said, with that out the way, Odell Beckham Jr. going 1st pick in the 2nd round, that's wide receiver 5. Jarvis Landry going 7th pick in the 5th round, that's wide receiver 24. The other expected starter is Antonio Callaway. He was a rookie last year. He had a lot of issues. He was graded terribly by PFF. They targeted him deep a lot. He didn't catch a lot of deep passes. We'll see. The other guys there are Rashard Higgins, Jalen Strong, and Damian Ratley. They're kind of waiting in the wings at this point. So talk to me about Odell. Is wide receiver 5 too low for him, or is that too high, or just right for you?
Me and Shrek kind of touched on this. We ranked sort of the elite wide receivers, and we had Odell kind of low. And I think it was just because the change of scenery, the amount of targets that have to go around to this offense and whatnot. So it's that coupled with the fact that he's going the cheapest he's ever been virtually for his entire career after blowing up his first rookie year. First rookie year. Yes, that's a thing. But it's one of those things we're talking about, like with AJ Green. It's the cheapest fucking price tag you're going to get on this guy, probably, I don't know, for the foreseeable future. So it's something you want to take advantage of, but also something that probably freaks a lot of people the hell out because he's still going so fucking high. My main concern is just the mouths to feed. New environment, whatever. He's with his best buddy Landry. It's, Baker's obviously an upgrade from Eli, so quarterback play should improve. It's just, can you feed Beckham, Landry, this whole team, and keep everybody happy and whatnot, still win games? Odell seems like a risk, but like the talent is there. I just don't know if I want to be involved for that ride. I think there are guys like would you take Juju or Beckham if you're early, like if you're doing the wraparound, like you got the 12th pick of your draft?
That's a great question. And I think I'd take Juju just because I think he's likely going to end up with more targets.
I think I agree with you too. It seems safer and the volume is safer.
That being said, I mean, like Beckham's a transcendent talent with the best quarterback that he's ever played with. And like we've seen him put up like wide receiver 3 seasons with Eli Manning. Like what the fuck is he going to do with Baker Mayfield, So it becomes a very, very difficult question that I don't necessarily have the right answer to. I think the range of outcomes on Beckham is significantly wider, and I think Juju's is narrower. And as Don and this podcast in general loves consistency, I think Juju would be the call there. But it's tough, man. It's not an easy call by any means. And I don't think you're wrong for taking Odell this high. I don't think you're wrong for taking him as like wide receiver 3.
Yeah. Well, the correct answer was both, Walsh. If you're at 12, you can take both of them because you have the turn as well. So you failed that question.
Well, I guess you're right.
No, thank you for answering. That was fucking tough. I was just staring at their names. I'm like, I don't know what the fuck I would do. Probably.
That would be, dude, if I'm sitting there at the 12th pick and I swing Juju and Odell, I'm just like, oh yeah, baby. Like I am fucking like jerking it at that point.
And then your first running back is like Aaron Jones and you're just in for the ride. It's like,
oh yeah. I'm back on the ride of like Aaron Jones, James White, and like us just.
Hey, but you pulled it off, I think, 2 years in a row. So
I'm drafting a lot of Jalen Samuels from that point.
Who am I to say anything? But yeah, it's tough where he's going. It's such a man, like you said, transcendent talent, but fucking just this offense is going to be fucking. God damn, dude. So many mouths to feed.
Yeah. And
talkers.
And on that point, I think we should talk about Landry because he's going wide receiver 24. And I am like, one of the hardest no's that I have on a player is Jarvis Landry at wide receiver 24. Because this is a guy who has needed an inordinate amount of targets in order to produce in his career. And like I said, after Kitchens took over, no one wide receiver got double-digit targets in any single game. And I said wide receiver there. No one receiver at all. And also you've got Odell, who we expect to absorb 150, 160 targets. So now Landry becomes a guy, a 5 to 8 target guy who to me is just not worth it at all there. Like he's going in front of Tyler Boyd, like fuck off. From week 9 on last year, Landry was sort of a hit or miss play. He only got 8+ targets in 4 of the 8 games. And those games were 8, 8, 9, and 9 targets. And during that run, he only eclipsed 100 yards twice. It was 103 yards, 102 yards, only scored 2 touchdowns in those 8 games. He only broke the 10 PPR point threshold in 3 out of 10 games. Like, you cannot tell me that guy is a wide receiver 2.
Yeah, I mean, I think it kind of laid out a question. Like, are you taking Tyler Boyd or Jarvis Landry? I think we can both say Tyler Boyd. And it's
Yeah.
a steal. He's going 2 rounds later than him, or a whole round and a half after him. It's going to be tough for Landry and Beckham to get theirs. They kind of like Beckham functions. He's obviously better than Landry, I think. I think that's fair to say. But they both function on the same thing where it's just like you need a heavy volume of targets. But I feel like Beckham does way more with his. We've seen Landry get, like you said, pelted with targets. And it was incredibly hard for him to get over 1,000 yards. If he did, it wasn't by much. Touchdown equity has always been a fucking problem for Landry. His season last year, obviously, he had something to prove. Went to the Browns, took a bet like on himself and Baker to prove something, and did okay, honestly, with what was going on there.
It was the first half of the season, though.
Yeah, but it was part of like the revival of the team. They got shit going. Like, it's fine. He also had like some injury snags. That's another thing with Landry too. So it's basically I'm arguing against myself for some reason. I'm agreeing with you. I'm having a hard time. The Browns confuse me so much.
I can't justify that price even like a little bit. I don't think it's worth
that's
it.
basically what I'm saying. It is fucking tough to swallow this pill and just take him around like fucking. You expect him to be a top 25 receiver? Like I don't think so. Probably, somewhere beyond 30. I don't think he's going to reach that. It's so many and then we have a lot to talk about.
I think with this offense as well, I think it's going to be hard to predict outside of Odell. I think receiver-wise, it's going to be very hard to predict week to week. So they're all going to be great tournament options in daily fantasy, but like they're going to be frustrating to play on your season-long team because David Njoku is going to get 7 targets and 1 touchdown one week, and he's going to get 0 targets the next week. Jarvis Landry is going to get 11 targets and then have 2 the next week. Antonio Callaway, the guy I want to move on to here, he's going to get 3 targets that are, all going to be 50 yards down the field, and he's going to catch none of them. And then the next week he'll catch 2 of them. I'm going to play him way too much in daily fantasy this year. It's going to be terrible. He's going to be so cheap. I'm going to lose a bunch of money for the second year in a row in Antonio Callaway, and there's nothing you can do to stop me.
Well, there is. I could stop you by winning the money because we're the same fucking group we do.
It's true.
Me playing Seth Roberts, baby. You playing Callaway and just us probably getting beat up by Shrek, honestly. He fucking hustles us every season.
Yeah, we'll see what happens. But Callaway is supposed to be the third receiver in this offense. He was very bad his rookie year, but he sort of had some injury issues. I expect him to kind of take a step and be a guy who can maybe at least, pull the top off the defense or draw coverage for guys like Landry and Beckham to do the work underneath.
Yeah, you'd think that, but no. It's just that's it. I'm staying away. I'm not drafting him. I'm not playing him in daily.
I'm not drafting him. I'm just going to play him in daily.
That's fine. That's your problem. I don't.
Yeah, it is my problem, bitch.
I'm out on that.
All right. So with that being said, we should note the other wide receivers are Rashad Higgins, Jalen Strong, Damian Ratley. I think I said that before. The wine is hitting me a little decent now. David Njoku at tight end. He's currently going the 6th tight end in the 8th round. That is tight end 10 overall. To me, Njoku is a hard stay away because I mentioned it before. The raw numbers were fine last year, but he was very difficult to predict on a week-to-week basis. I don't want to be in the game of predicting when my mid-round tight ends are going to work out for me. Yeah,
I would much prefer like anything else. Like I'll take a 0. I just don't want to have the mental headache of one. We always talk about this. You draft somebody, you have like this weird mental connection with them. You want to keep playing them. You want them to like reach their potential, and it just doesn't happen. I feel like that's Njoku here. I think a lot of people are getting carried away with last year. The problem with last year, we said there were a lot of mouths to feed last year. There's an insane amount of mouths to feed this year. He's not going to take advantage of anything either because Odell and Landry are going to feast over the middle. Njoku's just going to basically be boiled down to a red zone target kind of guy. You don't want to live on that if you're drafting him like that high, that involved. Just take a fucking late round flyer, tight end, deal with it, stream tight end, no big deal. Don't deal with this headache.
You know who's currently the same exact ADP as David Njoku, and that I will be taking 1,000 times out of 1,000 over David Njoku? Kyler Murray.
Yeah, that's fine. That is totally fine, Walsh. That is, yeah, why not? I feel like he's going to go up, though. I feel like we addressed that.
Yeah, absolutely. But at this point, that's the case.
Right.
I think the thing with Njoku is don't get sucked into like the average production numbers, because fuck was he hard to deal with last year, and I don't see that changing. I think that does the pass catch. Well, the other tight end is Seth DeValve. Do we need to talk about Seth DeValve?
Nope.
All right, let's get to running backs and my main man, Nick Chubb. Ninth pick in the second round, RB13. If he stays at that price, I will have so much Nick Chubb. PFF's first number one graded running back last year, averaged over 5 yards per carry. He wasn't great in the pass game, but he had 3 or more targets in 7 out of his 10 games as their lead back. And I think he has potential for more in the pass game. I am all over Nick Chubb. The fact that Dalvin Cook is going ahead of Nick Chubb is like insane to me. I love him.
Yeah. Well said, Walsh. I really have I can't argue at all. Like the Dalvin Cook, Todd Gurley, Damian Williams going before him and like that little bunch is sad to me. Like just take Nick Chubb. The dude is going to get 20 plus touches. He has insane red zone ability. The dude was a fucking monster throughout the year. They improved the offense like tenfold. It's insane why no one is, bumping this dude up at all.
Like, would you be surprised if Nick Chubb is number one running back overall at the end of the year?
Yes, I would be surprised just because Kareem Hunt is coming back week 9 or whatever. I don't know if they have a bye at that point. But
okay, that's fair.
So when Kareem Hunt comes back, obviously I think it shifts over to him. That is something, I don't know, that's a little aggressive to get into right now. We'll deal with that in the season. But Kareem Hunt is coming back. He will be on this team. He will be there. He is insanely talented and will be fresh. And this team is probably going to be making a playoff push at that point.
You're right.
You would think. So Nick Chubb, I sort of like you're paying up for Nick Chubb. But I think that's why he's a little lower than the other guys. There's a lot of stuff factored into like Kareem Hunt coming back. These guys have high ceiling. Like the ones going ahead of him, they have high ceilings. Also jobs that will last the season if they keep them. Like, do you see Nick Chubb performing so well that he holds off Kareem Hunt once he comes back?
I mean, I could see Hunt getting maybe 7 touches a game when he comes back. I don't think that's unrealistic. I think Chubb could average 18 touches a game after Kareem Hunt comes back.
Oh, see, I'm having trouble with that just because I don't fucking know. Just Kareem Hunt was so fucking good. He is so fucking good. And I feel like he's a different player than Nick Chubb. Like he'll go out there, make crazy breakaway plays. Like Nick Chubb can do that, but he's more of between the tackles, find the end zone sort of dude, take 20, 25 carries, deal with it like that. But it's a little tough. I think that's probably what people are seeing right now. It's tough to pay up for a dude, which is kind of weird because you get eight weeks of solid production and the chance that he does keep the job, like you're saying, with enough touches to, coach you out through the rest of the season. But I guess that factor thrown in is kind of making people stay off him.
Yeah, I mean, it is what it is there. Let's talk about Kareem Hunt and where he's going. Why is he getting drafted? He's the 11th pick in the 7th round. That's running back 36. You're going to hold this motherfucker on your bench for 8 weeks and then have him back up Nick Chubb?
Yeah, that is like the exact inverse of my other argument I was saying. Like, you do not need to draft Kareem Hunt. He is going to come back in 8 fucking weeks. You do not need to draft him whatsoever. Don't be that fucking dude. Don't waste your pick here. What the fuck are you doing? What are you doing?
Yeah, really, really bizarre to me. The other running back still in the mix, as you said on our notes, he's unhappy. He wants to trade, but he's still there. Is Duke Johnson. He had 62 targets last year, but only 40 carries. I don't know that he has any standalone value for me.
Yeah, I don't know. Again, I sound like a fucking idiot, but I keep saying the same thing, but I don't know what to think about Duke Johnson. Like, he's going to, like, if he's paired up with Nick Chubb, it's going to be a lot like last year. It's just, again, is Baker going to spread this around so much to, like, Beckham, Landry, Njoku? Chubb's going to get his. Is Duke Johnson going to do anything? Probably not. The dude wants off the team. I'm sure he'll be trade bait at some point in the season when Kareem is getting close to coming back. So I don't see him having any sort of role that would warrant a play throughout the season or even like a draft pick right now. So
the thing with him too is that from week 7 on, which is basically when Chubb became the starter, Duke was in on 42% of the snaps, but only got 54 touches compared to Chubb's 196 touches. So like he was playing, he was just using pass pro or not getting the ball. Like Duke's not going to get more than 42% of the snaps per game this year. And if he can't be fantasy relevant on 42% of the snaps last year, how's he going to do it this year? It doesn't make any sense. So for me, he's not draftable.
I agree. I don't think there's any reason to take him right now other than an injury to Nick Chubb.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, man. Do you have anything else on the Browns?
No, I guess we could talk about real football. You really think they have like a Super Bowl shot?
Yeah, I really do. I mean, I think the defense is going to have to play very, very well. But like, yeah, I think they have two really smart offensive minds guiding the way, which if we've seen anything over the past couple of years, it's that smart offensive minds can really lead you a long way. And they have a lot of talent to back that up. So yeah, I think if that defense comes together and say they're a top 5 defense in the league, I think they can contend for the Super Bowl pretty easy.
You do know they're in the same division as the Bengals, right? How are they going to stop Andy Dalton, Joe Mixon, and AJ? That's just impossible, dude. That defense is definitely not top 5.
You know, I actually haven't considered that, and you make some great points. So I might have to rerun some of my projections, like redo the algebra a little bit here. And
it's a bit of a wake up call.
I'm gonna come back next week and be like, I'm sorry, I didn't factor in that they're in the same division as the Bengals, and that's my fault. It won't happen again. And I no longer think the Browns are a Super Bowl contender.
That's great, man. Just wanted to clear that up. I know that was discussed on the first podcast of the year. Disgusted me, so I just wanted to, bring that up to your face.
As you should, and as you did. You got anything else for the people here, Vinny?
No. This is a great division. We obviously picked it apart piece by piece. I guess, I don't know. We had a tough time with the Ravens and Browns, honestly. But other than that, there is so much potential, and like this will be a hard-fought division, regardless of how bad the Bengals' offensive line is. So it's a fun one. There are a lot of guys going within the top 50 players drafted. So that's cool shit. I had a great time with you, Walsh. It was good to get back in the swing of things here.
Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Like you said, great division. We got another great one coming at you next week with the NFC South. A lot of offense to talk about in that division for sure. So keep an eye out for that. Again, check the back catalogs for the divisions that you missed if you haven't caught all of them. We've got in-depth breakdowns of the NFC East, the AFC East, and now the AFC North so far. So make sure you're getting all of those. We'll see you guys next week. For Vinny, I am Walsh. We are Let's Talk Fantasy Football. Later, podcast.
This has been Let's Talk Fantasy Football. Thanks for listening.